learn the difference between an AI, which is promised to try to be accurate, versus those AIs which are built to be deceptive. That's still a target in motion. And then just prepare to be as agile as you can, because everything is way more unpredictable than it ever was.
Welcome to another episode of Chief Influencer. I'm your host, Anthony Shop, co-founder of Social Driver. Let's face it, Washington is the center of influence in the US and arguably in the world. Chief Influencer features leaders who have figured out how to break through in today's fragmented and fast-changing environment. Social Driver teamed up with the Communications Board and the George Washington University College of Professional Studies to recognize these incredible leaders as chief influencers and highlight how they inspire and influence others.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting podcast episode of the Chief Influencer Podcast. I guess you've all noticed that I'm not Anthony Shop. My name is Liesl Riddle, and I am the Dean of the George Washington University's College of Professional Studies. We are the very proud sponsor of Chief Influencer Podcast, and Anthony Shop very kindly asked me to guest host for him today. And I couldn't be more excited about doing this because we have such an incredible special guest today. Craig Newmark is joining us. Now, many of you in our audience may know Craig was the founder of Craigslist, which I was so amazed to realize it is going to be 30 years, March 1st, 2025, that Craigslist became available to all of us to use to look for that next greatest thing that we need or have to have in our lives. But not as many of our guests, I think, are as familiar with Craig Newmark's latest work. And that's one of the things we're going to really delve into today, which is Craig Newmark Philanthropy. Craig, would you like to say a couple of words about what your philanthropy is all about?
Well, I'm an amateur when it comes to the world of philanthropy. I read a lot. I have an idea of what areas need a lot of attention and don't get a lot of attention. I've built networks of networks to advise me, people who are really helping a lot of people in the world, people who are helping protect our country in big ways. Mm-hmm. And that's where I've decided to focus. I mean, I do have a sense of humor, and I love birds. And, I have no sense of dignity. So now and then I'll support something because it's funny. Yesterday I had a photo op for pigeon rescue.
Pigeon rescue.
And you might dig up a glamour photo of me with Margarine the fancy pigeon. But the deal is I'm winging it. I have learned some of the things necessary to protect the country. I'm focusing on them, doing what I can. And a lot of that has to do with deferring to people who really know their stuff, heavily funding them, reminding them that they need to communicate better. And then for the most part, I get out of their way.
Well, I'm particularly excited to hear more about your thoughts about the cybersecurity industry. You know, here in the College of Professional Studies, we have all kinds of students enrolled in our undergraduate and our graduate and certificate programs in cybersecurity. And it is a very fast changing industry. So you've mentioned to me before that you kind of see yourself as the Paul Revere of cybersecurity. And I'd love to being at George Washington University, I'm particularly interested in anything Paul Revere has to say. So tell us a little bit more about that.
My deal is that we need to mobilize the whole country. We need to, as individuals, we need to do a better job of protecting ourselves, our families, our homes. We need to do what we can also to protect our jobs and to protect American infrastructure. And in doing all that, we help protect the entire country. Mass mobilization like that means that someone has to get the word out. And so far, I seem to be playing the role of Paul Revere. That's a maybe, because I don't know if I really want to put on a powdered wig or ride a horse. Horses are, kind of big and smelly, and they don't like me. The role I do have is the same as Robert Morris. He was the one who basically financed the War of Independence, the revolution. Ironically, not the Robert Morris who created the first internet worm. The missing role, we need someone with serious top-down leadership skills to play the role of George Washington. And I have no idea who that's going to be, but it's not me. And that requires serious social skills. And like, have you met me?
Well, I don't know about that, but I do think that you are the kind of person that people look to for the next most important thing we need to focus in on as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, and as an influencer. So I want to kind of dig into that, because I think whether it's Craigslist, whether it's the current work that you're doing, you've had multiple different kinds of stakeholders to reach out to with your message and to get people to kind of think about things in a different way. So what are some of your strategies or tactics for influencing stakeholders that get them to pay attention?
I really am a nerd, seriously, with the obvious dysfunctions relating to social skills. All I know is being very passionate about all the time promoting stuff which really helps the country. And, well, basically, think about what your moral compass is. My moral compass was set by Mr. and Mrs. Levin in Sunday school way back in the late 50s, early 60s. They taught me to treat people like I want to be treated. That means provide good customer service. They taught me to know when enough is enough, which is why Craigslist is monetized minimally. And now and then your brother's keeper or your sister's keeper. Those are a lot of the things I think about influence in business and maybe beyond. For example, if you're treating people like you want to be treated, you do the best customer service you can. Sometimes that's really difficult when your site is mostly free, but you just plug away and do what you can. There's other advice I only learned in 2010 at the West Wing. Valerie Jarrett saw that we were getting hit by a really nasty dirty tricks operation, one which proved to be successful. And she told me that no good deed goes unpunished. And she helped me understand that someone who's basically honest, particularly a technology person who's very honest, will never be able to successfully deal with or confront someone who lies for a living. So those are some of the big lessons I've learned. They're fairly sparse, but the idea is that anyone doing good work needs to be prepared to be hit by very bad people because they have no conscience regarding dirty tricks campaigns, and those can do an enormous amount of damage.
You mentioned that influencing people isn't just about being a cat herder, but also about empowering those with strong social skills. So what are the key players that need to step up to move cybersecurity efforts forward?
Well, we're working on that now. Cybersecurity is a team effort in a very, very big way. The only way I've been able to start handling it is by segmenting it with folks. For example, some folks are working on workforce development. And I'm preparing to heavily fund efforts which train vets and their spouses for cyber jobs. We need people to support education at the K through 12 levels. Most importantly, I'm trying to fund people to go through a multi-phase, mass mobilization effort, which means being able to explain why we fight and how we fight. Relating to the how we fight part, we need to get serious tool recommendations and approaches to cut through all the confusion about that. And we need to create networks of networks to support critical infrastructure, because right now, a lot of the small utilities across the country, ones which run infrastructure like water or electricity, they don't know how to protect themselves. And as well as doing the Paul Revere thing, I need to start providing networks of help, networks of resilience. Because if I just say these utilities aren't getting the job done and we can get all screwed, I need to start providing the solution. Now, I expect mass mobilization will, in fact, piss off a lot of IT people across the country, but at least I'm trying to generate the solution as well as delivering the message. I just don't want to be the messenger that gets killed.
Well, I want to understand this a little bit more deeply. When you talk about networks of networks, can you give us some examples of that?
Networks of people. For example, right now we have a cyber resilience network focused on infrastructure growing out of this consortium of cyber clinics. Cyber clinics are groups growing around the country where people who are really good at cybersecurity can help train the people who need to be really good at it, maybe at nonprofits, maybe at utilities. In addition, they're wrangling together some of the groups, networks of really serious experts in these areas, people involved, say, at the Franklin Project, University of Chicago, as well as the Undisruptable 27 group, which is located through the Institute of Security and Technology. I'm also doing related work, still to be really developed, at Vanderbilt under General Nakasone. So the networks are coming together. It really needs to be done with George Washington level skills. And I'm a nerd. I barely have Paul Revere level skills. But like the Batman would say, I'm probably not the nerd you want, but I'm the nerd you got.
Well, I have a question related to what you were just saying. You mentioned a lot of university partnerships, which of course, being a university, I think is outstanding. How are those university partnerships interfacing with and collaborating with government agencies and with the private sector?
These groups are extensively collaborating with state and local level government agencies. At this period of our history, people aren't sure how it's going to shake out at the federal level. I'm just real naive when it comes to Washington, and I don't know what to make of Washington. Washington doesn't know what to make of me, so I defer to professionals who are dealing with it. I'm kind of scared of Washington. The idea is this, and the theme of the people working on cyber resilience is that, if the foreign military starts taking down our water supplies, our power supplies, we're really screwed. So before that happens, we want to encourage everyone in the country to implement basic cyber precautions. And then we got to motivate businesses and utilities to implement the same and a little more. I mean, utilities have devices called programmable controllers and others that control things like valves and electrical conduits, that kind of thing. And, those are not the kind of things that we know of as computer systems, but they are electronically connected. Some of those devices, which control the flow of water or power, they're right on the internet with no firewall protecting them. And that's not a good day for us.
No, not a good day at all. And I think you speak about the difficulty it is to get so many different actors aware, but also working together to solve some of these problems. And so, I'm curious about, you've talked about this importance of securing funding for projects like cyber civil offense. But what's been really the most effective way that you found of really getting people to invest in these kinds of initiatives?
Uh, I haven't found a good way to get people to invest in it. Uh, in previous years, the major funders were Hewlett Foundation and myself.
Mhm.
The Hewlett folks have that project of theirs has ended. Me, I'm going to plug away, and this is serious. I'm committed and planning for the next 5 to 20 years. That's a little shaky in that I'm 72. So at 20 years out, I may have to conduct due diligence via seance. And Ouija boards don't have the bandwidth I need. So in the worst case, I may I may have to come back and haunt people.
Well, I hope it doesn't come down to that. I think you're laying so much wonderful groundwork, and let's hope there's many, many years for that to come. With this, as big as this issue is, and as many different actors as it really is going to take to collaborate and solve these problems and really better secure America, how do you cut through the noise as an influencer? How do you cut through all the noise that's out there about every given different crisis or other thing that takes our attention away and really get various different stakeholders focused on the objective?
Well, I'm not a comms guy. That's my great weakness. But I listen to great comms people who talk about flooding the zone with crap.
Mhm.
Let's flood the zone with facts, the call to action for cybersecurity. And we just got to do it and do it. And, the idea is that we just have to remind people that the nation is under threat and everyone needs to protect themselves. Every influencer is a potential target, uh, either for someone who's just, looking for greater attention, someone who might want to eliminate competition, or someone who wants to infiltrate their systems to launch other attacks.
Mhm.
It is a common military attack on the part of the Russian or Chinese military to infiltrate people's systems and use them to attack others. Because if the attack is immediately originating out of your system, attributing that to a hostile nation becomes a lot harder.
This episode is brought to you by the George Washington University's College of Professional Studies. With in-person and online programs ranging from master's degrees in public relations strategy to certificate programs in digital communications, GW offers more than just the credentials to help working professionals get ahead. It prepares them to be leaders in their field. Check out cps.gwu.edu for more information.
There's such a vast territory that you're covering in your Paul Revere. You're riding through K through 12. You're riding through workforce development circles, riding through government, riding through private industry and all sorts of different areas. So I want to kind of take that apart in some pieces because I think the actors that you're working with and even the messaging and the activities that you're doing are very different. Can we drill down just a little bit more on the K through 12 piece of this? How well do you think we are doing as a nation in communicating and raising awareness among our youth about the cybersecurity field and the need?
We are starting to break through, but a lot more work needs to be done. Girls Who Code is now teaching cybersecurity to a lot of kids, but that's still a small fraction of everyone.
Mhm.
There's other groups doing that as well, but so far it's a drop in the bucket. I really do need to work with that group more to try to spread their message through all schools in the US. This also includes good efforts which can help the entire effort. For example, Girl Scouts now have cybersecurity merit badges
Mhm.
at different levels of that. My neighbor, who's I think 7 and a Girl Scout, Her mom and her are very proud that she's gotten the first 3 cybersecurity merit badges.
Oh, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. So then let's pivot there to what about colleges and universities and doing degree programs in cybersecurity? What are we doing well, and what do you think we need to be doing better?
One problem which the workforce development people are working on is finding out what are the good programs, the effective programs across the country
Mhm.
to actually do that kind of training. We need to know who they are. Maybe we need to suggest that they do cyber clinics so that that acts as, well, it's training for students,
Mhm.
advising in real problems. And that way it helps solves or prevents problems on the part of nonprofits and also utilities and also local governments, because our country is full of targets. A lot of them are very soft targets, and this is a way people doing workforce development can pitch in. Um, I do some special efforts. Like I mentioned, Vets in Tech trains vets and their spouses for jobs in cybersecurity. But also, there's the DoD Skill Bridge program, which takes active service members and trains them to keep fighting even after they transition out of the armed forces.
So, what about the things that the private sector could be doing differently to help expand our cyber workforce?
Um, Everyone in business, particularly utilities, needs to start implementing cybersecurity basics. If it's a business, they may have the opportunity to buy, let's say, serious products. Um, but it's the basics for everyone, because if it's a company, well, they need to tell their employees when they go home, they need to practice good cybersecurity, particularly since at home, their work lives and their personal lives overlap a bit, because if you take a phone between work and home,
Mhm.
that phone is going to be in at least 2 different networking environments, and it should be behind your home firewall or the company firewall when you're in either place, and the phone should be looking out for problems. Same thing with notebooks. And if you're traveling, that's a more challenging issue, because if you're in a hotel or cafe, you have no idea what kind of firewall is going on, and maybe you need to be running the equivalent in your phone or notebook. We don't know. And that's a recommendation which we're not prepared to make, not soon, but not long after soon, we're going to have to take those issues up.
Mhm.
That is, what do you run in your phone or notebook so that it's providing the kind of protection that a firewall does? For that matter, we need products that run in our systems that are constantly looking for intrusions or anomalous behavior.
Well, there's so many things we could continue to talk about cybersecurity, and I just jumped right in there because it's such a big passion of mine and for our students. But I want to also make sure we take time to kind of go back to Craigslist, kind of where, this type of entrepreneurial sort of ringing of the bell, almost like Paul Revere, really on the internet. You really were in creating Craigslist. You scaled Craigslist from 0 to 100 by leading through example rather than using a singular breakthrough tactic. So, how do you apply that same philosophy to all of these other things that you've done since then?
Um, I don't know how it's going to work out with fast mobilization for cyber or for vets or for military families.
Hmm.
The only thing I know is that people want to be part of something bigger than themselves, maybe need some clear direction, because there's a lot of confusion in other areas. So this mobilization campaign basically becomes one of persuasion to get
Mhm.
everyone in the country to protect themselves. But I'm the opposite of the guy who knows how to do that. I'm hiring good people to do that, and I'm trying to learn from when it worked. Because in World War II, everyone was expected to play a role and everyone pitched in. That's pretty good. And that war involved very little actual warfare on our shores.
Mm.
Cybersecurity kind of attacks, warfare, well, that's already starting to have intrusions and attacks on our soil.
Mhm.
So I guess when that kind of thing becomes a thing, um, it's going to be, we're going to see attacks everywhere. But I have a lot of confidence, like in World War II, the American people will rise to the occasion. Our adversaries in World War II, some of the smart guys said, you know, you don't want to wake up the sleeping giant.
Mhm.
And, that's what happened. And when we're properly mobilized in the country, we can, we can get the job done. So the sleeping giant needs to fight back and protect the country.
It's really interesting to see how you've come from this environment that's very different, right? The Craigslist environment into this world of cybersecurity. Can you help the audience kind of understand? It seems like two very different things, but I wonder, is there a thread that kind of got you from one universe to the next?
You mean between cyber military families and vets?
Yeah.
The way I think about this, well, what's in my gut is that we got to help the people who protect the country.
Mhm.
So I'm helping the people doing the cyber defense. I'm helping the people fight kinetic warfare and following through. If somebody is volunteered to go overseas and fight, I need to get their six. And that means doing things like, well, what Blue Star Families does. They figured out what do military spouses need when they've been relocated to a different part of the country, which I'm told happens about 600,000 times a year to all the military families.
Mhm.
When they land in a new place, they have no idea what's going on. They need help finding a job. They need help with childcare, restaurants. They need help
Mhm.
becoming part of a community. Blue Star Families builds chapters and outposts in different congressional districts, and it's working. Bob Woodruff Foundation supports vets by running a network called Got Your Six all over the country. It consists of nonprofits who are actually good at something in terms of helping vets. There are far more vets nonprofits who don't do anything, but they've narrowed it down, I think, to around 360 nonprofits across the country who are useful.
Did you serve yourself, or did you have others in your family that served in the military? What's the connection in particular that drew you to this population?
Um, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. What is my connection
Mhm.
to any of this? And I guess I'm going back now. I grew up in the 50s. My dad fought in the Pacific
Mm.
behind a desk, but he was out there. My mom learned bookkeeping, and I think what I remember is that she um, took over the job that the bookkeeper had been doing, because I guess he picked up a rifle and went overseas. So during the 50s, I'm growing up. Uh, I hear, you know, the message is that patriotism is normal and expected of us. We have to prepare to fight foreign adversaries. Russia and the Russian communists were the big deal then. And that sunk into me, as well as growing up in Morristown, New Jersey, which is where Washington and the Continental Army spent a couple hard summers. So memorials to that effect were all over the place. I, for a while, was picking up the school bus, right in front of Washington's headquarters, in front of a big statue of Washington. Across the street from that, we went to Jockey Hollow, Fort Nonsense. There's a big statue of Thomas Paine. I passed all the time going to the municipal swimming pool in the summers. And then in my senior year of high school, I had a really serious U.S. history and civics class. Mr. Shulsky made sure we understood the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and what was expected of us. So that's ultimately the reason. I mean, the proximate cause, well, also I saw at that time soldiers returning from Vietnam and being treated badly. I was very naive. I didn't understand anything about the war, but I knew that it was wrong to abuse returning soldiers. So decades later, I'm at a lunch table with a guy from the Iraq and Afghanistan Vets of America. Things clicked, and I'm now one of the largest supporters in the country. As I reflect, I haven't done a real survey, but as far as I could tell, I am the biggest single supporter of vets and military families, although I guess I need to ask someone to do that research. Maybe someone at GWU.
I bet we can find somebody. Of course, GW also is the home and of so many different vets that come to us for their education and schooling, and particularly in our college. So thank you for supporting them. They're such an important part of our society and our community. I really would like to talk to you also about leadership, because you and I have had some interesting conversations about your particular style of leadership. Would you share a little bit with our audience about your thoughts about what makes you different or distinctive as a leader?
Well, I got trained in IBM probably right around 1990 to lead by example. And maybe I'm good at that now. I don't know. The deal is to practice what you preach, starting with the golden rule, and then visibly coming up with a good balance between making money, keeping money, and then leaving money on the table. When taking all that money might mean not doing the right thing for your community. Maybe those are the big lessons. Practice what you preach, show people that you're doing it, maybe getting reasonably good at communications, knowing your limitations, and then finding people who do good work, empower them with money, with sharing money, sharing influence, and then getting out of their way. Because sometimes the person who puts a lot in motion, if you're too much of a presence, you can Bigfoot things. People are worried about contradicting you, and that's a big lesson. I've surrounded myself with people who know their stuff, who can give me good advice, and who can also remind me when I'm full of shit. Because we all see rich guys surround themselves with people who will do nothing but say yes. And power and money can really make you stupid.
We have so many young people from our college and other listeners that listen to this broadcast. And I wonder if you might have some sage words of advice for a young person looking out into the world that we are currently living in, with all of its uncertainties and threats. What would be one or two pieces of advice you might have for a young person who is trying to build their skills for tomorrow?
I got no sage advice for anything, really. I know people need to remember what they can of their moral compass. Again, treat people like you want to be treated. and stand by that. Find out what you're good at and what you love, because you may have to do an unfortunate balance between those. And given that everything is in flux, particularly with generative AI, so you do need to learn more about what's going on there, and learn the difference between an AI which is promised to try to be accurate versus those AIs which are built to be deceptive. That's still a target in motion. And then just prepare to be as agile as you can, because everything is way more unpredictable than it ever was.
Well, you certainly are a great example of someone who has been incredibly agile, incredibly creative, and has truly been a chief influencer in more than one sphere and more than one sphere at one time. We're so grateful for you for appearing here on the Chief Influencer podcast and sharing your experience and wisdom with us, Craig. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And as always, remember, a nerd's got to do what a nerd's got to do.
I love that line. I love that line for so many reasons. I love that line. Thanks a bunch for coming today.
Chief Influencer is a production of Social Driver. We help clients transform complexity into clarity with people-centered strategies. Whether you're looking to elevate the influence of your brand or of your leaders, check out socialdriver.com to learn more. For show notes or to nominate a guest, visit us at chiefinfluencer.org or follow Chief Influencer on LinkedIn.